Hey there, Comics World. I hope everyone's doing well. I didn't set out to do weekly status reports, but here I am anyway. It seems like every day there's just so much to talk about in the world of comics. My comics, the comics of friends, or just comics in general. It is an ever-changing and always evolving landscape out there, and I'm glad to be a part of it in my own very small way. Before we get going, I'd like to stop and say thank you to all my Patreon supporters. I'm going to put your names across the bottom of the screen here, and just thank you very much for your, subscribing to my Patreon page. It means the world to me, and I've had a lot of subscribers the last few days. It's suddenly seems to be getting popular, gaining some momentum, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. In this comic you see me working on, I bring back the new character of Shania Jensen's, a new character for BOHICA Blues. She's the unit's first female enlisted combat engineer. She's not the first combat engineer. That honor would actually go to Captain Mirav Mizrahi, who was an intelligence officer before branching over to become a combat engineer in order to take command of the company. People who have been following the integration of women into combat branches of the Army may have noticed that they started off with a lot of female officers. Female officers were mostly at the forefront of Ranger and Special Forces schools, and the first infantry female was an officer, and so on. They started off with females in positions of leadership. It is a little harder to bully an officer. Even if she isn't physically intimidating, she can bring a lot more administrative heat on you if you mess with her. Plus, once these ladies graduate and take command, it is easier to integrate subordinate and junior ranks. It probably also provides some level of motivation or mentorship for the junior female soldiers that follow. A lot of these sorts of issues will be brought up at different times when I start doing my Military Advisor video series. One of the reasons I find the military such a fascinating place, a good setting to write fiction in, is because the military draws from people of all walks of life from all over the country. You meet people with such different backgrounds, people you never would have met otherwise. The military is, in some ways, very much a melting pot, more so than general society. Even if you don't like or understand some people you meet in the military, you can't pretend they don't exist. One of the things I noticed when I joined, a real eye-opening moment, was when I first showed up at the reception station of Fort Benning in Georgia. I rode on the bus with all these guys that had their slogan t-shirts, different clothing and fashions, and I don't know, hats, cowboy hats, trucker hats, whatever. You could tell who was who by their stereotype. The jocks, the punks, the nerds, the cowboys, all the things we surround ourselves with to show the world what group you belong to. And the first thing the Army does was take all of that away. We all got the same haircuts, we all got the same clothes, we were taught new ways to walk, new ways to stand, don't shuffle your feet, don't slouch, don't act or talk casually. It was fascinating to see how, once that thin, artificial layer of pop culture personality had been stripped away, how alike we really all were. That's one of the many things I want to explore in my military fiction. I've done it a bit with BOHICA Blues. I will do it more with Empires when that comes out. On the flip side, people may notice that there isn't a lot of obvious diversity in BOHICA Blues itself. There's some, but BOHICA Blues takes place in a reserve unit, so there's part-timers, the weekend warriors, so to speak. These units stay in one place and get their recruits from the local population. In the case of BOHICA Blues, the local population is Boise, Idaho, which I feel I've represented proportionately. It is mostly white, with Hispanics a close second. After that, we have a number of Asians and a small but growing number of African Americans. Most of the younger people I portray are the more diverse ones, such as Salty, who is ethnically mixed, but I've never brought up exactly how. So far, it hasn't been germane to the story. Will there be others? I talked with fellow military cartoonist Pete Barlow of G.I. Low about LGBTQT characters in BOHICA Blues. So far, that also hasn't really been germane to the story. I don't rule it out, but I don't want to put in specific characters just because. To me, that's tokenism, and I would like to avoid that. I go where the story takes me. I also don't talk much about Joe and Junie's daughter, Josephine. Not having kids of my own, I don't know a lot of kid humor that doesn't come off as a lame old dad joke, the kind of thing that has already been repackaged hundreds of times. Plus, it's just not a family sitcom kind of story. That said, I do have a couple ideas bouncing around in my mind about some Josephina material. I think the best thing that can happen for a creator is when the story and characters take on their own lives and they start to guide and direct the flow. In a way, I'm not always the one having to sit around and think up new ideas. The characters think up ideas for me. It's nice letting them do some of the work. It's like they're finally paying rent for that space they occupy in my mind. Thanks, fam. Speaking of occupying space, I've now started to post the entire BOHICA Blues series over on Tapas. I've added that to my list of collectibles like Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, as well as the home site. What's next? Webtoons? I don't know, maybe. This doesn't really seem like a fit for webtoons, though. I'm more likely to start colonizing Pinterest. But besides the home site, where BOHICA Blues has been since its 2013 launch, and all the social media places, I've got the books for sale over at Ko-Fi. I'm just going to call it Ko-Fi. That's what it looks like. You can shop for books there. I have many satisfied customers from there, and of course there's the old Patreon page with its usual dark secrets. At Patreon, there are development sketches and doodles, sneak peeks, works in progress, old stuff from when I was a young'un, and even unique Patreon-only comics that pop up every so often. Drop on by and consider joining the small but very exclusive crowd of folks that are on the inside track over there. And rest assured, any and all income from my comics, art, and stories gets put into the creation of more comics, art, and stories. If you can't afford to buy or donate, then don't worry. Just drop by at Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Give a like or a supporting comment. It all adds up as far as I'm concerned, and it is all appreciated. So anyhow, thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you've stuck around this far, you may as well hit like and subscribe. I won't tell anybody. Until next time, keep things interesting by keeping things random.